another thing is, I think you probably like AMD more because there's more problem with it. You have more tuning. With NVIDIA, you set it up, do a couple of tweaks, and off you go. But with AMD, there's memory timings. There's so much thing to do.
Yeah,
to keep you busy.
There's a little more, especially if you're like mixing rigs up with different types of, cards and the consistency difference, the fabrication difference,
even the memory manufacturer that can make problems.
The partners too. Like
so what would be the most common issue you have with GPU rigs?
The number one issue. Well, it depends because the series had their own little specific issues. I would say on the newest stuff, they're actually really consistent. Besides probably like the 6800 and 6900s, sometimes can be a little flaky. But like the 6600 is just rock solid. It works really good. So RDNA2 stuff, pretty decent. Not a huge amount of problems. Step back into like the 5700. I still think it's one of the best ones that they ever produced. Next to probably Vegas 64, but like they are a little more finicky. If you put BIOSes on them, they're a little more not unstable. On that series, so that whole 5000 series in general, but still had a decent set of output. My favorite was the Radeon 7. If it would have just functioned correctly all the time, like it burned up. Like I think they overshot it, and I think they were trying to really go for the compute side on the HBM2 stuff. That thing 2.5 years, 3 years ago now? 3 years ago was doing 100 megahash.
Yeah,
which, is insane. Like they built it to just take over the, but you don't have a long longevity. We had a total, I think, of we had 21. We had 3 7-card rigs of those, and we have 6 left, to give you an idea. So there was a high fail rate on them.
So you never mentioned any issues about the risers. Are you using risers, or do you have GPUs plugged directly in the board?
Risers. So we had the version 7, essentially version 7s of the risers on our farm in 2016, and we had, 2,500 GPUs. We probably went through maybe 100 risers over the whole entire time. So like we had bought double. So we were figuring we're going to have a pretty high fail rate. Let's buy 2,500 and let's buy another 2,500. So we bought 5,000 risers and we used about 100 on a replacement. So I have boxes of version 7 risers that we just didn't use. So I don't know if they were just the best. They were just the most consistent. The huge thing about risers that I've learned is understanding the amount of power that's being provided through them. And it really is dependent on the cards that you have. So like, I think a lot of that contribution was because we had RX 470 and 480 Sapphire mining editions. And like one of the things I cover on the channel is I do this test. We have a tool that was custom built that allows us to look at the riser power pool. Those cards, when configured down, and you're at like 790 millivolts on the output, 2000 memory, and I think like 1100 on the core, they pull 27 watts off the riser. So it's a very low amount as compared to like a fully optimized 5700 to pull 55 watts off the riser. So it's almost double. And what happens is that they just, when you're pulling that kind of power through them, even if you're 6-pinned into them versus like a SATA connector, they fell, and like the newer ones, especially like running like a 3090. A 3090 I just showed on the video, we actually had one pull 108 watts through the riser with your full tilt, have everything turned up, nothing turned down, on like Ravencoin. It was pulling 108 watts off the riser, which is insane. Like I'm surprised the riser didn't catch fire, but when you're tilted all the way down and optimized on like a 3090, you're still pulling 70 watts on that. So I think it comes down to just the design of them. And that's why, a lot of people ask like, hey, why don't you have like Octominer cases or stuff that's built in single boards? I had one when they first came out, and within like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, we had a 5700 rig on it. I lost two of the onboard risers. And it's like, well, now I can't replace those that are built into the board. So that's why I don't go with it. Cause if I lose a riser on that board, then I have that slot gone. So Yeah, I think it's management of it. We're trying to expand the channel content. We've hired 8 people, and I have 2 people that are really trained up that they could do all the troubleshooting. I have absolute confidence in them, and we're trying to record kind of a series of going back through. We have a little over 100 different GPUs here. I've kept a lot of them all the way back to like the 6950s. At least one of them, each of the types. So we're going to go back through with a series and do that riser power test with a couple different algorithms just to show everybody essentially a matrix of like, here's what you're going to pull. So here's your configs and the impact on it. Especially as we get to Ethereum 2.0, if and when they actually switch it over, and people look at things like Ravencoin and things that are like ProgPow coins that are going to pull a little more juice. How to optimize it to where you're not going for the top hash rate. You kind of back it down to save your hardware type of thing.